Hey kids, this is Missenden Flyer here, hope you're well. Now, it's the 25th of April 2018, it's just gone lunchtime, and that means this morning the latest MCN fluttered through my letterbox. I've been through it this morning, as well as the other papers from the last month. If you're interested in the UK bike news from the last month, then stick around and stay tuned for the next half an hour. Okay, grab yourself a brew because there's quite a lot to go through in this month's press. Lots been going on, and MCN have revamped the paper as well, and they've got lots of new features and articles, so I'll talk a bit about those. And towards the end of the review as well, I'll give you a bit of a heads up on some of the things that are coming up on the channel, so some parish notices as well. All right, without further ado then, let's crack on with the news review. So this is the first paper. This was dated April the 4th, here we go, and got 4 articles here again to pull out. First one is this one here, down the bottom here. Cops told they should chase bike thieves. Now this is really interesting because this comes from, you know, all the spate of bike thefts that we've heard about, particularly in the City of London, but other big cities as well. I'm sure it's not just peculiar to the UK, but here in the UK, an MP, Nick Hurd, has said to the police that they shouldn't worry about chasing thieves on motorcycles, even if they don't have crash helmets or whatever, but they should just crack on after them. Now that's interesting, isn't it? Because of course the last time that happened and a bike thief came off the bike and got hurt, the policeman in question ended up in court, and it impacted his job, and that's partly why the police are a little bit reticent at chasing these people. Now they've been promised that new laws are going to come into place that will protect them in such cases, but in the meantime Nick Hurd has said, well, you know, just crack on anyway. So interesting. I mean, if your job was on the line, would you do that? Just interested to hear what you think about that. The police absolutely need to chase the bike thieves, but they absolutely need protection. It's no good just saying don't worry about it. They need that legislation in place, is my opinion. So let's hope that the slow wheels of government grind a bit quickly and give the police a bit more protection when it comes to chasing down these bike thieves. Alrighty, next story that came up in this paper that I want to pull out. Here we are. Sex in the City is the title. Not quite sure why the title is that, but anyway, it's all about the new Husqvarna Svartpilen 401. This is the little, Husqvarna are now owned by KTM, so it's no surprise that this 401 has the engine out of the KTM 390 in it, a bike that I absolutely loved. Svartpilen, in case you don't know, by the way, means black arrow, and I think the bike looks really cool. But when I first saw this at the NEC, I think actually a couple of years ago, the first prototypes were shown. I did a little video, a first look of it, and lots of people said they didn't like the look of the bike, but I actually think it's a really cool looking machine. Anyway, just wondered what you thought and whether you think it's worthwhile me trying to get in touch with Husqvarna. In fact, I do have a contact there to see if I can get one of these for a longer term loan when they're available. I think it's a cute looking little bike. Given I love the KTM 390, I think I'd probably like this, and it'd be interesting to compare the two. So, interested in your thoughts. What do you think to the Svartpilen? Do you think it looks good, or do you think I should give that one a miss? I'd be interested in your views on that. Okay, third story. What do we got? Yamaha catches Triumph. This is one of the road tests that MCN, I think, are pretty good at doing. As proper journalists, they're able to get hold of bikes to do these sort of tests on. I can't. Occasionally, I might get a bike that I compare against one of my own bikes, but it's not within my gift, unfortunately, to go to a bike manufacturer or dealer and get a couple of bikes at the same time so I can do direct comparisons. So I'm always interested to read the ones that MCN does, and here they've done the MT-09 SP versus the Street Triple R. Now the Street Triple R bike I know very well. I own a Street Triple R myself, albeit a 2012 one, so a few generations ago, but I absolutely love that bike. And I recently rode the Yamaha MTO9 SP and posted that up on my channel. Really enjoyed that as well. For me, I said that if I was going to buy one of these bikes these days, I think I'd probably go for the Yamaha, and that's partly because, not because I think the Yamaha is a hugely superior bike, but just because I've had a Street Triple for so long, it'd be quite nice to have a bit of a change. But actually, the two bikes I think are very closely matched, and both brilliant fun. You wouldn't go wrong with either of these. What did MCN say they thought was the best one? Let's have a little look at the verdict from Michael Neves, one of my favourite MCN journalists. This SP is the closest yet, he says. Ever since 2013 release, the MTO9 has been gunning for Triumph's triple, but never got a sniff. And it's now saying, thanks to its classy suspension, the SP is the closest yet. And then at the end he says, but it still lacks the Street Triple R's unbeatable glossy refinement. And I sort of agree to a degree there, in that the fit and finish now, modern day Triumphs, is absolutely fantastic. If you look at the paintwork, if you look at the attention to detail on them, they just feel like solid quality machines. And I'm not saying the Yamaha isn't a quality machine, but it is a little bit plasticky in comparison, so I completely agree in that respect. But in terms of what's the nicer bike to ride, much more trickier. I mean, if you're in the market for one of these sort of mid-sized naked bikes, then you got to ride them both, and good luck with making your choice. Just really comes down to which you like the looks of more. I think both bikes absolutely fantastic. But interesting to see that MCN is still putting the Triumph first. I'm a Triumph fanboy, so you know, I love that British bikes are doing so well. Okay, last item in this particular paper. Oh yeah, this this article I picked out here is called "So You Want to Buy an Off-Road Bike," and it talks here about different bikes and gives you the options. And at the bottom here it says there are 3 options: motocross, enduro, and trail. And it talks about motocross bikes being 250 to 450 competition, off-road only; enduro bikes being road legal motocross bikes; and trail bikes being designed to tackle green laning at 450 to 650 cc. Interesting definition. I don't entirely agree with that. I wonder what your definition of these various types of dirt bikes are. This is something I struggled with when I went and bought my Honda CRF. I'm not great at off-road riding, but I wanted to do a little bit of gentle green laning. And to me, the CRF 250L ticked all the boxes because I didn't want to do anything extreme in competition. I certainly wasn't going to race or go to motocross tracks. I just wanted to do some green laning, as I say. But for me, what won the CRF over was it had basically a road-based engine in it, 4-stroke, easy to service, something that was serviced every 6,000 miles as opposed to every 12 hours of use or whatever. And what this article fails to mention is, number one, the difference between 2-stroke and 4-stroke, which is a very different game. You know, 2-strokes are still very prevalent in the off-road world. And also the fact that if you get the hairy bikes, those do take a lot more looking after than a standard road type bike. So I'm not sure this motocross enduro trail distinction they've come up with is the one I would agree with. So if you're on the market for one of these, maybe do a bit more of your own research. But it's a complicated old area buying an off-road bike. You've got to know what you want and what you want it for, and then hunt out some experts and find out what the real story is. But anyway, great fun they are, and I thoroughly, if you're at all interested in doing some off-road stuff, thoroughly recommend you do it. You don't have to become an expert, or it doesn't have to become your super hobby, but it certainly improves your road riding, just like doing a track day does. Anything that can help with your road riding has got to be worth doing, isn't it? Especially if it's fun. All right, so that was that one. So that's the first paper covered off. Okay, the next paper, the headline on here, Cal on top, and we'll come to that. In fact, it's the first story that I've picked out here. Now, I've not been, as I've mentioned before, I'm not closely following MotoGP these days. It was the only bike sport that I really did follow closely, and I watched it, you know, for a lot of years. I always went to the British Grand Prix, really enjoyed it, and always enjoyed watching Cal Crutchlow, but he never quite did much over the last sort of 7-ish years or so. But this year, the Argentinian Grand Prix, absolutely thrilled to say that he won the Argentinian race. The reason I've highlighted it here is because he's the first person to win, and in fact he was at the head of the table at that point, the first person to do so since Barry Sheene in 1979 to lead the Premier Championship. So an amazing achievement, something that wasn't reflected in the press as usual. Of course it's in the biking press, but it barely got a mention on the BBC News, for example, on their sports bulletins, and that's just an absolute travesty. The reason why I don't watch MotoGP now is because it's only available here in the UK on a channel called BT Sport, which is a premium channel you have to pay for. The only thing on there that I want to watch would be MotoGP, and I'm not going to spend the monthly fees just to get MotoGP. So I can only watch some highlights or read about it in the press. It's a real shame. I think the sport has been somewhat ruined by that, but there we go, that's a whole other subject. But congratulations to Cal. This particular race was full of all sorts of other shenanigans by the other prime riders, and that got all the headlines, more so than Cal actually winning the race. So just want to put the record a bit straight here with my subscribers. Well done, Cal, top man for winning that, and much deserved and much overdue. Brilliant news. Okay, next story here. Bike Thieves Bolder Than Ever is the title down the bottom here, and this is just an intriguing one because this is where, again, I don't want to go too much on bike theft, although that comes up quite a lot in this month's review. This is where an unfortunate gentleman's MTO7 was stolen literally from under his nose, under his window, and he managed to record the whole thing on video, and it's up online and you can go and look at it. You've probably already seen the video. Absolutely shocking how these guys, you know, just snap the steering lock, and then when he, you know, basically makes it clear that he's watching and he's filming them, they basically leg it, and then not before they stick a hammer through the windscreen of the car next door. Absolute shocker. I mean, these people just need to be stopped. So back to the point we made earlier, more power to the police as soon as possible. I don't know what became of these, whether these guys got caught as a result of the video, but I'd like to think that they possibly did. Okay, third item here, it's in the letters page, and it's entitled Going Potholing. It's a letter from somebody called Simon Redford, and he's basically just warning people, and I echo this, which is why I'm raising this, just be aware at this time of year about the potholes that are on the road. Now that we're through the winter and the weather's starting to get a little bit warmer, there's some incredible sized potholes arising, certainly around here in South Buckinghamshire where I live. Some of those potholes are capable of swallowing your whole bike. You know, I've hit a few with my car and it damages the rims on your car wheels, and you can get punctures and all the rest of it. If you hit one on your bike, you could be off and you could hurt yourself. So just be careful out there at the moment. Potholes are a nightmare. The council around here at least are sort of attempting to fix them, although I was shocked last week when the main road in my area was closed, and then when I actually got out the traffic queue and saw what was going on, they're actually just filling the potholes basically with gravel and tamping it down. That was their idea of a fix. Not sure how long that's going to last, but anyway, potholes, there's a whole whinge video I think just on that. Okay, next item in this paper. Do you need 1200cc to have an adventure? Now, I think we all know the answer to that question, don't we? But it was just a good chance really to talk a bit more about the Honda CRF that I mentioned earlier. Now, this particular article, this is Jordan Gibbons, one of their senior reporters. He's talking about the CRF 250 Rally, which is the sort of adventurized CRF 250L, if you like. It's got a slightly different screen, slightly more suspension travel, etc. But he's, as you know, you can guess, saying in the article, you don't need 1200cc in order to have a great adventure, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. I mean, just ask Steph Jevons, who just got back from going around the world, in fact, on a Honda CRF 250L, or indeed my mate Ben King, who's currently doing it on the very same bike. You can have a great go, you know, a great adventure on one of these bikes, and if I were to go around the world or embark on a very long journey, I certainly wouldn't do it on something like a GS. If you drop it, it's heavy. Once it's loaded up with kit, it's really heavy to manoeuvre around. Whereas one of these, it can take you anywhere. It's unthreatening. It's easy to maintain. You can carry your kit on it. Perfect for that. Not just the CRF, but other bikes of that sort of capacity. So yeah, the answer to that question, of course, is yes. Let me just have a quick look at the verdict here and make sure they're not disagreeing. Yeah, they're saying you can do it, so that's fine. Good, excellent. All right, so that was the second paper, which leads me on to last week's MCN. Now here we are, this is the new shiny, new look MCN. It's got a slightly different banner on it, and they've got all sorts of new columnists in here as well, including John McGuiness as well, who has a regular weekly column, and they've got all sorts of new features in here. So if you haven't got MCN recently, it might be worth buying a copy just to check out the new look on it. Anyway, 5 items here that I've pulled out to talk to you about. Let me just have a quick swig of my tea. Right, first one, bike sales on the up. It's a little article just tucked away in the corner here, and it's basically saying that despite, you know, the bad weather we've had over winter and all the uncertainty around Brexit, let's put it that way, they're saying that sales of bikes are up for the first quarter of this year. In fact, up by 5.6% overall, which is great news for the bike industry. And in fact, it may or may not be a surprise that the best-selling bike once again has been BMW's R1200 GS and the Adventure, which actually, it says here, dominating the top of the chart. So it implies that it outstrips sales of other size bikes as well. I'm not sure if that's true. I'd need to check the figures, but certainly the GS is doing very well. I'm pleased to hear that as a GS owner and fan. But yeah, great news overall that it looks like that last year's sort of doldrums in the bike sales market seems to have turned a bit, and this year so far is looking good, so that's good news. All right, second item in this paper. New Tracer gives you more is the title, and this is the new Tracer 900 that they've made a few changes to. I think they're calling it the GT, aren't they? And this one has got a few extra bells and whistles over the older bike. It's got a longer swing arm, it's got a bigger screen on it, which is now easily adjustable, as opposed to fiddling with things that you used to do, you just click it up now. It's got different ergonomics, the handlebars are slightly different, the way the foot pegs are and so on, the triangle that you sit on the bike is different, making it a bit more comfortable. And it's not a lot more expensive. In fact, it's only 350 quid more than the previous bike at £9,392. So I loved the original Tracer 900 when I rode it. In fact, if you were going around the world, going back to the previous story, this is the sort of bike I'd be intrigued to do it. I wouldn't look to go off-road much, but you know, stick a pair of knobbly tyres on here and a bike like this would pretty much go anywhere. The Tracer 900, I remember being, number one, very pokey in that it had, you know, had good power, so that would be great on a long journey, and comfortable if you're on long road miles, but also it felt very light. So if you did need to go off-road, it would be pretty good on that as well, you know, light off-road stuff, although of course it's not designed for that purpose. So, yeah, if I was to choose around the world bike, I might go for something like that. But anyway, I digress. The Tracer 900 looks like a lovely bike, and hopefully I'll get to ride this new revamped one quite soon. Okay, so that was number 2. Number 3 in here. What have we got here? Oh yeah, interesting. Again, another bike theft story. It's down here. Police 1 Bike Thieves Nil is the title of the article. And the reason I point this out and the reason why it's of interest is because this is the sales manager from Zero UK, which is the electric bike company you may remember. His name is Dale Robinson. In fact, I think he's the CEO in the UK. He's the very chap who brought the Zero to my house in the back of his van, which I then crashed and still feel terrible about. But he's sadly last week, or a couple of weeks ago now, he had 2 of his demo machines stolen out the back of his van. 30 grand they're worth. But the good news is within 24 hours they were retrieved because he had a data tool tracker and immobiliser fitted to each bike, which is absolutely fantastic news. My heart goes out to Dale because obviously he's not a lot of luck with these demo bikes after me crashing it, and I suspect one of these bikes may well be the very bike now repaired that has been stolen. So what a bummer. So sorry about that, Dale, if you're watching, but glad to hear you got them back. And glad that the tracker did the right thing for you. Now, I'm a massive fan of trackers. I've got them fitted on all my bikes. And in fact, I'm testing something at the moment called a Monimoto, which is sort of a, I don't want to do it disservice, but a sort of a lower grade, slightly cheaper tracker. But it's a tool that enables you to get your bike back once it's been stolen, as opposed to keep track of it at all times. And I'm testing that at the moment, as I say. And so far, I've been very impressed with it. It's quite cheap, and I will be doing a review on that. But if you've not got trackers and you've thought about them, the Monimoto might be a way to go. So stick around, stay tuned on the channel. I'll be bringing you a video on that soon and comparing it against the other more expensive trackers that I've got on some of my other bikes. Okay, oh, I couldn't let this particular issue pass without showing you this article, Blog Off. Look, it's by the Missenden Flyer. I have my very own column now in Motorcycle News. Who would have known it? The wonders of the internet, eh? These news reviews I did started off about getting on for 2 years ago now. Then I called it More Crap Than News. I had my wrists slapped by MCN for calling it that, rightly so perhaps. But I've enjoyed doing these bike reviews ever since, or these news reviews ever since, and it seems that you like watching them as well. So absolutely chuffed that I've ended up getting myself a little slot in here. It's not just me. I have a column in here every 4 weeks now, and then there are other moto vloggers, I believe, that are going to do them in the interim weeks. So looking forward to seeing what they're doing as well. But look out for mine every 4th week. There'll be a Blog Off article from me in Motorcycle News. How cool is that? Okay, couldn't not mention that as we were going through the paper. All right, and then the last item from this week's paper, or last week's paper I should say, is this. Another one of those brilliant MCN comparison. Extreme Adventure, they've called this, and they're comparing the Africa Twin Adventure Sports against the Triumph Tiger 800 and the KTM Adventure 1050. Is that right? Yeah, 1090, sorry, the Adventure R as it's called now. And these are all bikes that I've ridden as well. In fact, I rode the Africa Twin Adventure Sports only this Monday, so my review is yet to come out. It's in the can, will be published soon, but I was really impressed with that bike. And out of those 3 bikes, if it was me ranking them, I'd definitely put the Africa Twin Adventure Sport first, followed by the KTM, followed by the Triumph Tiger. Again, a little bit disappointed because I'm a Triumph fan, but there's no denying those other 2 bikes, to my mind at least, are just nicer bikes. I'm not sure what the MCN outcome was. Let's have a quick look. Oh yes, they gave each of the bikes, funny enough, 4 stars out of 5. They are all good bikes, you won't go wrong with any of them, and that comes back to one of my previous things that I've said about you, but there are no bad bikes out there now. When you review bikes, particularly if you're doing comparisons like this, it's hard to find things that are bad about bikes. You just like some more than others. So in that vein, MCN have given all of these 4 out of 5 stars, which I think is about right, but when you read the actual verdict, they're saying that everybody that rode them actually all preferred the Africa Twin Adventure Sports, which is interesting because that absolutely is the same as I felt having ridden it. An absolutely brilliant bike. Look out for my review if you're in the market for one of these slightly smaller, less intimidating adventure bikes. Then things like the Africa Twin Adventure Sport, you really are losing nothing with that. You're saving some money and you get yourself a lovely, lovely bike. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. And in fact, well, I won't say anything else about that review because it'll be coming up soon. I don't want to spoil it for you, but there we go. So that was it for last week's MCN. Then we move on to, last but not least, this week's paper, and I've got 5 quick things I want to point out here. This came out today, so I've not read it thoroughly. I've had a quick flick through, and there's so much in here now with these new articles and so on. I've struggled this week actually to narrow down some of the stuff because you know, often at the end of these bike news reviews, I get people asking, "Why didn't you cover this? Why didn't you mention that?" Well, I can't cover everything because I'd be here for an hour. In fact, how long have I been on now? I'm not sure. But yeah, certainly. So I do have to miss a lot out. So I'm sorry about that. If you want to, find out more, get yourself a subscription, read MCN yourself. But anyway, these are the 5 things I picked out of today's paper. First off here, they're doing a lot in MCN now about actually using your bike. Rather than just doing reviews, they're actually going out and about doing trips, telling you where to go, that sort of thing. And one of the items here to do with their MCN Ride 5,000 Miles promotion, this is just, again, a way they're trying to encourage people to get out on their bikes more, is this item here. And it talks about the fact that the competition on the channel crossing routes now between Eurotunnel and the ferry companies really means it's happy days for us. And there's an example here of one guy that did a channel crossing, went over on the Monday, came back on the Friday, and it cost him £35 return with his bike. What an absolute winner. So if you thought about going over to Europe and doing some riding, and you know, it's all there for you, the Pyrenees, which I'm yet to do but would love to, Black Forest, again, how good would that be, the Alps, or just a quick blap to, you know, down to Le Touquet and back for a day trip. I mean, I absolutely encourage you to do it. It would be fantastic. And at 35 quid, well, what an absolute winner. So yeah, if you've not done that yet, get over there. I always like the train personally, just because it's quick. But you know, the ferry can be a bit of an adventure as well if you've not done that with a bike. Okay, second item here. Scoots now make even more sense. This is Neil Murray, who's their used bike dealer that features in MCN every week, and he's just extolling the virtues of scooters. Now this is something that I've been talking about for the last year, in that I rode my first scooter only about 6 months ago, and I've ridden a few since, and I really like them for what they are. People that poo-poo scooters without having ridden them are really missing a trick here. They're just intended as cheap urban transport, and they do that with aplomb. And that's basically what Neil Murray is saying here. He's basically ditched his more expensive bikes on his daily commute, bought himself a cheap Honda scooter for 800 odd quid, or was it 700 quid actually? I got a figure, 750 quid. He got a mint 2009 scooter. He's riding that to work every day now, and he reckons it's going to cost him £5 a week in fuel. What an absolute winner. And he's not worrying about his bikes being stolen. So there we go. That's again why scooters make more sense than ever now, and I agree with him. Okay, next item on here. Yes, it was another letter here. Where has it gone? Give them a wide berth is its title. Here it is. It's a letter from Andrew Colladell, and he's talking here about horses and riders and horses not mixing, that sort of thing. I just wanted to mention that you know, if you're out and about and on the country lanes as we are this time of year, it might be your first time out on the bike. Just be aware of horse riders out there. Now, I hate seeing horses on the road. They wind me right up because, to my mind, just looking at them, horses are designed for the fields, and when, again, as an occasional off-road rider, the number of bridleways that there are, they can be on those things, not on the roads. But I get occasionally they might have to go on the roads to link those things up. So, okay, and often it's attractive women in joggers riding them, and you know, you can't knock that. So anyway, I'm just wondering, what is your technique for going past horses? Because one of the things I often do, if I can, particularly if I'm on the little CRF, which is very noisy because it's got a loud pipe on it, and I think could startle a horse coming up behind, I often, if I've got enough speed, which won't need to be a lot, I'll just kill the engine and just drift by, so it's no noisier than a bicycle. And the riders always seem to appreciate that, and that's fine. But I did that on one of my videos, and I had some comments of people saying, well, actually, horses often get spooked by quiet things suddenly appearing more than if they hear it coming. So just wonder what your experiences on that were. I mean, I've had mixed experiences. Sometimes, you know, you go by, there's no issue. Other times you go by, it might be what looks like a 9-year-old in control of this massive beast that gets all skittish as you go by. And frankly, it's pretty frightening for all involved. So anyway, horses on the road, it's a whole big subject. I'm sure it's, you know, we could do a big rant on that. In fact, maybe I should make a little note about that. But what's your technique for going by horses on the road? Be interested in the comments below if you've sussed out the best way, or if indeed you ride bikes and ride horses and know what works. I know nothing about horses, so be interested to know what the best technique is from a horse rider's point of view. Okay, the penultimate item here, just wanted to pull out. Now, this is one of these new articles that I mentioned MCN are doing now in the revamped paper. They've got John McGuiness roped in to write a weekly article, so that's great news if you're a John McGuiness fan, and who isn't. This week he's written an article called "We Need to Get the Next Generation Onto Bikes," and he's talking about how to encourage youngsters onto motorcycles. I mean, you can't disagree with the idea. You know, we're all obviously enthusiasts about biking, and we would love that biking continues as a hobby, but it does seem that it tends to be older fellas that are riding bikes. Whenever I see somebody take a crash helmet off, it's very rare that it's a youngster, which is a real shame. And I think that's partly because it's so hard to get your bike licence. Insurance costs are really high. How do we get youngsters to get into bikes? How do we make bikes cool again so that they want to ride them? I don't know. Also, it might be a bit of this sort of mollycoddling nature that we tend to be these days, where we make sure our kids avoid all risk. I've got a couple of young daughters, 17-year-old daughters that are currently learning to drive, and that absolutely gives me the shakes and willies when I go out with them, let alone with the thought of them going out on their own once they've passed, and the thought of them being on a motorcycle would be an absolute nightmare to me. So I'm being sort of hypocritical here. On the one hand, I love motorcycles and motorbiking and want it to continue. On the other hand, not sure I'd let my kids out on a bike. So interesting little conundrum. Wonder what your thoughts were on that. Okay, and then the last thing I've picked out here, couldn't let this paper go without just showing you this. This is Ducati's new 959 Panigale Corse. Basically what they've done is they've taken the small Panigale, a bike which I love as an 899 owner myself, and they've given it Olin suspension, they've given it a Euro 4 friendly titanium Akropovic can. Since when did Ducati have Acras, by the way, instead of Termignones, which to my mind is much the better option. Anyway, they've got these Acra cans, and also it's got this really natty paint scheme that apes the Superleggera actually, and looks really beautiful. And for that, you'll pay another £1,900 over the base price. The base bike I think is 14 grand. This one is 16 grand. Still a lot of money for a mid-sized sports bike, but what a beautiful, beautiful machine. Really love the looks of that. I've never liked the look of those exhausts, whether they're Acras or anything else. That's why I went for an 899 rather than a 959. But a beautiful bike. I think the Olins would probably be wasted on me, but if you're a track day fiend, you'd probably notice the difference. Anyway, lovely, lovely bike to finish on. All right, that's it for the news review this month. I said I'd give you a few parish notices about stuff that's coming up on the channel. Just a few things that I want to mention. I've got some stuff coming up. I've got loads more on the Triumph Tiger 1200, the big adventure bike I've borrowed from Triumph. Had that for a while. It's gone back now, sadly, but I've got a few more videos in the can about that. So stay tuned to watch those if you're interested in the big Tiger 1200. I've got soon another scooter review coming up, actually, but this isn't any old scooter. This is an electric scooter. This is the BMW, I think it's called the C Evolution. An incredible maxi scooter, but with all the go and oomph of an electric bike. So all the stuff I loved about the Zero DSR, BMW have sort of packed into this scooter and made it a really interesting ride. So you're going to want to watch that one as well. That's coming up. I've ridden the Triumph Speedmaster. That surprised me as well. What else have we got coming up? The Kawasaki H2 SX SE. Rode that last week. Review coming up soon. This is the supercharged touring version of the Ninja H2. Well worth watching. Went out in that lovely weather that we had this week. So yeah, really enjoyed that. So I've got lots of bike reviews coming up, lots of product reviews as well. I've got one or two interesting gadgets to show you, some sort of stuff that just make life easier, as well as that Monimoto that I mentioned, the bike tracker, which is at a much more reasonable cost than the usual option. So stick around for those. Must just also mention the next live stream. Now, the last live stream, if you attempted to watch it, was a disaster. I ended up posting a video about why I didn't do a live stream. I've got to the bottom now as to why the live stream failed. I was trying to be a bit too clever. I bought a new camera. In fact, this very camera. And I found a way to actually take live video images out of this using the HDMI port. I won't go into the technical details, but I attempted to do the live stream from this camera. It's better quality than the little webcam that I had been using previously. And unfortunately, that was why it failed. It turns out, I've done some other tests, it turns out this spits out an awful lot more data than the standard webcam does, even though they're both HD. And it's due to the way that this does the encoding, apparently. And that is why my last live stream failed, I'm pretty sure. So I'm going to revert back to the webcam that I used to use. The colours aren't so good, it doesn't look as nice, but at least it works. So the next live stream will be back using that again. Hopefully that's going to work. I've changed the timing. It's going to be on Wednesday, May the 9th, but I'm doing it this time at 10 AM UK time. I know that doesn't work for UK people generally because you're going to be at work, but you can watch the recording. Reason I'm doing it is because 10 AM UK time is 7 PM in Sydney, and I have a lot of Australian viewers, and I just wanted to do something that meant they could actually join live for once. So, and another month I might well move it so it's some hideously early time in the UK morning, so it works for my US viewers as well. So I'm going to try and mix and match just so everybody gets a chance to see it live, but don't despair, of course, the recorded version will always be there. Fingers crossed that it actually works this time. So make a note in your diary. If you are around 10 AM UK, Wednesday, May the 9th, or 7 PM Sydney time on Wednesday, May the 9th, that's when I'll be doing the next live stream. Loads coming up for that. That's pretty much it. All remains for me to do is to thank my sponsors for Bike News, which is Custom Fit Guys. These are the guys that make these brilliant little earplugs that you often see me using on my tours. These are my go-to earplugs, really. I've been using them for a couple of years now. Delighted to say that they're on board sponsoring these very videos. So thank you to those guys. Check them out. Website link below. If you need some new earplugs, custom fit ones work really, really well. Comfortable in your ears, block out the sound, but you can still hear what's going on around you thanks to the clever little filters that they put them. Anyway, not meant to be an advert. I'm just a fan of their kit. All right, that's it for now, and hopefully I haven't missed anything too major, but I'm sure you'll let me know if I have. I hope that was of some interest to you. Look forward to speaking to you next time. Until then, this has been the Missenden Flyer. Cheerio.